Manga spoilers, by the way. As the Fire Force verse is in complete chaos with the random earthquakes and appearances of giant pillars, we see that while Company 1's Hyun-Yun, Kareem, and Kon-Youngo are fighting off the talking infernals, we see the appearance of a demon infernal as he proceeds to take out the remaining infernals. While this is happening, we see Benimaru get a weird feeling as he senses his deceased master's energy lurking around. As we cut back to the Demon Inferno, we see that an earthquake is happening, implying that another pillar is about to arise. While Company 1 is distracted, we see the Demon Inferno flying away towards Asakusa. We then get official word of the appearance of not only the 6th, but the 7th pillar as well have been located, with one of them being at Tama Bay and the other one in Sumida Bay. Like the rest of the pillars, usually there'd be a giant infernal spotted right beside it, and as that is the case for the 6th pillar, near the 7th pillar there was no giant infernal to be found, but what was spotted was a human-sized infernal hovering in the air next to the pillar. As Conro has a word with Benimaru, he mentions that some of Company 7 said that they saw a demon infernal fly over Asakusa, resembling their old boss. As they confirm this infernal to be their old boss of Asakusa, Benimaru quickly decides to take care of him on his own. As the others like Joker and the rest of Company 8 question this sudden change of heart, Benimaru tells all of them not to butt into this, as he claims that this is his fight and his fight alone. As he's making his way to the pillar, he starts getting some flashbacks to when he was a kid and was being trained by the old boss. As he asks his master, referring to him as a rotten old fart, why'd he come back here, the reborn master just calls out his name with a menacing smile on his face. As the king of Asakusa arrives, we see the tension at an all-time high as they stare each other down over the waters of Sumida Bay. As the master tells Benimaru, referring to him as a snot-nosed brat, saying that he's grown, he quickly takes back that little compliment, calling him a baby. As Benimaru asks again about why this old fossil has suddenly come back to the town, he then says, to destroy, claiming to destroy the entire Tokyo Empire. As they both prepare to attack each other, they both use the Iai Chop first form, Kagetsu, and clash with each other, causing the waves to act up. Kareem and the rest look up to the sky, as we see Lieutenant Conro and Captain Hibana arrive on the scene. Talking about this demon infernal Benimaru is fighting is no doubt the doppelganger of the man who loved Asakusa more than anyone else, Shinmon Hibachi, the former boss of Asakusa Hikeshi. As they're talking about this, we see Hibachi appear in front of Benimaru and just blast him down to the ocean. As it seems that Benimaru is holding his own against the attack, we see Hibachi firing barrages of flames towards Benimaru. But as he deflects it, some of the attacks end up hitting the town and the few people that are in it. As Benimaru is enraged, asking the old geezer what he's doing, we see Hibachi with a smile on his face as he continues to tease Benimaru. As Hibachi is about to use Iai Chop 4th form, we see Beni charging towards him, about to use the 5th form, Burning Sun. As they clash, Hibachi states how he hasn't changed and that he's still the same boy he found on the streets years ago. Beni tries to get another attack in, but as he does, we see Hibachi completely tank the attack, saying that the only thing that's changed about Benimaru is his height, but that's it, still clearly joking around with him. As Beni tells his master how recently he's been showing up in his dreams, but he's never thought that he'd come back as a monster. As Hibachi sort of brushes off his shoulders, he then says that Conro probably never gets a moment's rest taking care of Beni. As Beni gets somewhat offended, Hibachi then goes on, calling Beni a brat, saying that he's been running Asakusa ever since he died, but he probably still can't even pull off a decent Nichirin, saying that's why he's come back from hell. Benimaru then corrects him, saying what he meant by hell is probably Adola. He also discovers that he's Hibachi's doppelganger, saying that his Iai chops are just like the real deals. But Hibachi doubts that Beni actually cares about whether he's the real one or not. Adding on to that, saying that what matters is that Beni has forgotten what a real Nichirin looks like, so he came back from the depths of hell to show him. As Hibachi performs his Nichirin, Benimaru says that without a doubt that's the old boss's Nichirin. From Beni's expression, Hibachi assumes that Beni's Nichirin still isn't good as his. And after all this time, he still thinks that he's unfit to be Asakusa's ruler and carry the weight of the town. And as he asks if he's learned anything from watching him, Beni asks if he's forgotten the way that he died. But Hibachi says that it was just another part of being an Asakusa Hikeshi. Hibachi says that Beni is the one who can't let go of his death, asking him if he knows what people call punks like Beni. But Beni replies with what he's been called his entire life by Hibachi, a dad blame idiot. We then cut to a backstory of Benimaru's childhood. But for the sake of this video, I don't really want to get into too much of his backstory, mainly because I'm afraid that it will drag out this video. But I'll quickly sum up most of the backstory while giving time towards the more important parts that are needed. As a kid, Benimaru was definitely the more hot-headed type. Despite his superior pyrokinetic powers over literally everybody in the verse, that didn't make him go around acting all high and mighty. But if you pissed him off or got in his way, he'd take you down by force. Even though Benimaru was a stray mutt that was picked up by Hibachi from the streets and sooner or later became his successor, Benimaru still didn't feel as if he was ready or even fit to carry the weight of Asakusa as its ruler/boss. As Hibachi disciplines Benimaru quite a lot, he also tries to give him a clue or two to help Beni find his resolve, but of course makes it very confusing for Beni to understand straight away. Conro tries to help Beni out every now and then with these clues, but Hibachi hates how Conro spells out everything for Benimaru, saying that it will just spoil him at the end of the day. The next day, as Hibachi and Beni are talking after killing an infernal, they discuss the number of infernals that the Hikeshi of Asakusa have put out throughout the generations, with that number being 9,568. But after this day, it has become 9,569. Nice. Hibachi says that Asakusa is his town, but he won't be around forever. He then questions Benimaru, asking him how long is he going to keep running away, saying that he has to be ready to bear the responsibility of all those deaths, saying that that's what it means to be an Asakusa Hikeshi. After that, Hibachi pretty much kicks Beni out, telling him not to come back until he's ready to carry the weight of the Nichirin. We then see Benimaru on top of a rooftop contemplating what Hibachi said to him about taking responsibility for both the living and the dead, saying the person in charge of the town carries the grief, rage, and resentment of all the lives that have been taken, saying all those different emotions are like the changing phases of the sun, which are shown and used as the 7 Ei chop forms. Benimaru says that the type of responsibility is too much for a decrepit old man to carry forever. Beni also adds on to that, saying that the old man might think that he isn't ready, but Beni says that he's been ready ever since the day the Asakusa Hikeshi took him in, claiming Asakusa to be his town. While Benimaru has finally found his resolve, Hibachi realized that he got too careless and told Beni a bit too much, calling himself a dad-blamed idiot. While Hibachi is walking outside, we see someone running towards him, who we find out is the child of the mother who turned infernal and was killed by Hibachi earlier that day. And the kid ends up stabbing him. As Hibachi is on death's door, we see the kid saying that he didn't do anything wrong, and that he did exactly what Hibachi did to the infernals. Hibachi accepts this ideology of his, saying that he's killed so much, it's reasonable that he'd be killed by another. The kid asks Hibachi what gives him the right to take people's lives from them, and as Hibachi replies with that he doesn't really have the answer to that question, he does say that the boss of Asakusa can't be a sensible man, saying that the boss has to be the biggest dad-blamed idiot under the sun. As Hibachi slowly dies and the kid goes into custody of the Asakusa Hikeshi, we see what seems to be a time skip where Beni officially becomes the boss of Asakusa Hikeshi, and as we see that he takes out infernals a bit differently than Hibachi did back in his day, it still has some similarities to the way that they did it when Hibachi was still boss. Shinpeta asks Conro why Beni was so reluctant to take over as the boss of Asakusa, but Conro answers his question saying that Beni didn't think he ever proved himself to Hibachi, and that's why they have to support Beni. As we are brought back to the present fight between Benimaru and Hibachi's doppelganger, Conro tells Beni to go on and show the old boss that he's carried the weight of Asakusa since the day that he left, saying that all he has to do now is shoulder the weight of a real Nichirin. As the old boss charges at Benimaru in an attempt to knee him, Beni catches it, but he's then blasted away by Hibachi. Hibachi then asks when is he going to let go of his death. Beni replies with that he wasn't supposed to go off that easily. As Beni is about to use an EI chop first form, Hibachi gets the same idea and uses it as well. As they both clash, they end up getting sent back a little bit. But that doesn't stop them in the slightest, as Beni uses EI chop third form, while Hibachi uses EI chop fifth form. As both of their attacks land on each other, we see that it's done close to no damage to one another. While this fight is going on, Kareem points out that this fight is having an effect on things, questioning if the waves have always looked like that. Hibana then comes to the conclusion that their flames are bringing Adola closer, and that the ocean in people's imaginations is starting to have an influence on the real world's ocean. As Conro continues cheering on Benimaru, we see Benimaru smirk as he says to the old boss that he's got something to show him, so he shouldn't make it easy for Beni to kill him. As the fight continues, we see that they're fighting all over the place like they're in Dragon Ball or something. As the Asakusa Hikeshi start cheering, we see Beni and Hibachi still going at it, blasting each other away with attacks. As Beni flies towards Hibachi, about to use the fifth form of EI chop, we see Hibachi deflect it with the fourth form. As they seem unfazed by the attacks, they get ready to use the second form, Gecko, translated to Moonlight, and as they use it, it's so bright that it practically blinds Kareem and Hyoleon Lee. As Benimaru is on top of Hibachi, Hibachi yells Benimaru's name, saying that he's down here. Hibachi then uses the fourth form, Burning Sun, and blasts Beni from beneath him. His flames are so powerful that the shockwave and heat are gouging a hole in the sea. As Conro states that the old boss's flames leave nothing in their wake. But Conro also says that the old boss also knows good and well, as much as he does, that Benimaru is the child of flame, comparing him to Kagitsuchi, the fire god, and that the fire will always take Benimaru's side, because of the fact that he's a second and third gen pyrokinetic. As Hibachi states that Beni is the same old monster he's ever been, Benimaru says that there's something that he really needs to say to him. As he takes out his left arm from his kimono and starts to bow, he then says that ever since he's passed away, he took up the torch from Conro and that he's been honored to act as the boss of the Asakusa Hikeshi, which, due to certain circumstances, is now the Special Fire Force Company 7. Benimaru says that he knows that he's been a pain in Hibachi's ass, but he requests the favor of a fight, saying that he wants him to see the kind of Hikeshi he's become in hopes that he'll agree that he brings no shame to his Shinmon name. As Hibachi asks Beni if he's going to kill him yet, Beni replies with if that's alright with him. As Beni states that Conro and the rest are his Hikeshi, they all start cheering for him, shooting fireworks, twirling their matois, chanting Seiya Soya. Hibachi then calls out Company 7, asking if he really calls them Hikeshi, as Benimaru apologizes to everyone, saying that the old boss had to come back as a monster because he never managed to grow up. Beni says that they should show him what kind of Hikeshi they are so that he can go back and rest in peace. As they all listen to this order of his and cheer louder for Benimaru, they all throw up their matois, telling Beni to take care of the old boss. As Beni controls their matois and gathers them, Hibachi questions what they're up to. Beni then apologizes to Hibachi about his Nichirin taking so long to master and to show him. And as we get a sick panel of Beni performing the Nichirin, we see more fireworks being shot up into the sky, making the whole aesthetic pleasing. As Beni warns Hibachi, saying that he's coming, we see Hibachi being hit with a barrage of blasts. Hibachi says that Beni's Nichirin is the real thing, saying that he can tell by the light. Bold and brave like a wrathful god with the sun wheel at his back, crowning Beni as a true Asakusa Hikeshi. As the 7th continue to cheer out Waka's name, Hibachi calls them a bunch of morons. And as Beni hits Hibachi with this attack, Hibachi says that this is so like him, asking Beni if this is his true resolve, his Nichirin. As Benny jokingly apologizes to him, he says that they both know he just really likes this one better. As Hibachi calls him a dad-blame idiot just one last time, he asks Benny if he thinks that he can have both the sun and the moon, revealing Benimaru's true Nichirin to include both the sun wheel and the crimson move attack. As Hibachi starts to disintegrate, he says that this style of Hikeshi that Benimaru has created is what he's poured his heart and soul into. As Benny thanks the old boss for everything he's done for him up until this point, we see the old boss's last words to him being "not bad," complimenting his Nichirin, creating a giant explosion as well as a shock wave coming along after. As Benimaru comes back to the ground, Kanro asks where the old boss is, with Benimaru replying with that he's gone, saying that he gave him a proper send-off with everything that he had. As Kanro accepts the old boss's second death, Benimaru adds on saying that he treated him like a dad-blamed idiot right up until the very end. But after seeing him one last time in that fight, he was finally convinced that when he called him an idiot, he was giving him his seal of approval. As Benny asks Kanro his opinion on his Nichirin, we see Kanro tearing up, saying it wasn't bad. As Benimaru questioned why Kanro's crying, Kanro says because him and the old boss are too stubborn to do it themselves, and that he's crying for them, making the god of destruction crack a smile. As Benimaru says that he's thankful to have Kanro around as his lieutenant. Hey guys, DarkheroJosh here, and this video wasn't a Blue Lock related video as you can obviously already tell, but comment down below if you guys want some more Fire Force related moment videos like this one in the near future. While you're doing that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new, and give this video a thumbs up. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a great day, and see ya.